not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 10.
Welcome into Mississippi Live Weather at 10. I'm meteorologist Gabe Maynor, live from the Room to Room Weather Center. And what I'm trying to do right now is pull up our poll for our game of the week. Working on getting those numbers in, so apologies here. But that does mean that there's a few more minutes to submit those votes. Where I saw last was Tupelo winning by a good margin. Is that still the case? Well, Wi-Fi permitting. We will see how that is going. I'll continue to keep eyes on that behind the scenes and update it as need be. But let's go ahead and get into the show at hand, because on top of our game of the week forecast, we are tracking a busy forecast in the fact that we do have the potential for some strong storms heading into our Wednesday, really overnight and into our Wednesday. So storms move in overnight. That's where that severe weather threat begins, but more potential moving into our Wednesday afternoon. And that's, of course, what we will be monitoring here in the Room to Room Weather Center heading into that extended forecast. Looking at those strong storms possible for our Wednesday. Again, a heightened threat compared to what we're seeing right now, but definitely going to be paying attention to that in more detail. And as we take a look at the good news when it comes to this forecast, more cool air on the way, more fall-like weather heading into this weekend. We'll have more details on that forecast here in just a moment. But let's bring it back to what we're seeing right now, and that is going to be those soggy conditions already starting to move across the state line and into North Mississippi. Those chances very limited, only around 10 to 20% coverage there by that 11 and 12 o'clock hour, but overnight and into the mid-morning being that 3 a.m., 4 a.m., not mid-morning, but you know what I mean, kind of mid-overnight. It's going to be around 30% coverage, and those storms really going to start becoming a little bit more rampant, and then we're going to see those chances really rise there towards your Wednesday. 30 to 40% coverage around that morning commute. Temperature-wise, not too shabby, and that's a result of some of that moisture keeping those temperatures at bay, so we will definitely take that as long as it wants to stick around for. So it looks like slowly but surely that Wi-Fi is coming back, and I think we'll get it here in just a moment, but still working behind the scenes. So let's get back on that forecast. And what are we seeing on Mississippi Live Weather Radar right now? Well, you might notice it looks drastically different from what we had a few moments ago. And as you can see, that we have not severe thunderstorm warnings, but a flash flood warning in place for DeSoto County there along the northern portion around the Memphis area. So folks up there dealing with heavy amounts of rainfall as that front is pushing more and more in. But the rest of us here in North Mississippi, I mean, we are not dealing with a drop of rainfall. Those dry conditions really prevailing whenever it comes to our forecast we're seeing right now. But as we look at, let's see if we can pull it up. I have faith. Okay, hang on. Think we might be making it happen. I have overpowered this computer, so okay, possibly. Okay, so as we mentioned, the Mississippi Live Weather Game of the Week is happening this Friday, and I know that folks were submitting their votes of where we want to go, where you want us to go, and we are so excited for any of those three options, but I actually don't know the final results here, so we're going to be finding all of this out together. So bear with me one moment while this loads in. We're not far away, only a few more posts. Internet's going to internet. Gotta love technology, right? So I thank you guys for joining me here at the Room to Room Weather Center. And again, we are going to be looking at that. Matt, do you have it pulled up? Oh, hang on. I don't think your mic's on. Hey, Matt, I don't think your mic is on. I'm not seeing it, those returns. I don't know if it's, see my mic.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, and of course, perfect timing. I do have it pulled up whenever we want to come back, but I have those results.
So let's wait here a second. We need to. So we'll get the game of the week B block on this. In this scenario, we need to make sure that we are on storm stuff right out the gate. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that over here for just a minute, if you don't mind. Tracking some of these thunderstorms back from the north and west. Again, main overall anticipation is that we're going to probably have potential for some rumbles overnight. Most of these storms will be below severe limits, but from time to time, it's not impossible that we could get something a little stronger. So let's look a little closer here at this batch of thunderstorms. One of the reasons I'm not overly concerned about what we have out there right now is the fact that we definitely have an outflow that's kind of extending ahead of this here. You can see that's that rain cooled air right there from Middleton, Tennessee there down closer to Holly Springs, expanding toward the south and east there. So again, that is associated with some gusty wind, but kind of looking at the latest here, it's also detached. So a lot of times you'll have your more unstable air out here ahead. And that more unstable air, when these storms are kind of right connected to it, we get most concerned. The fact is it kind of kicked out this outflow tells me that these storms aren't ingesting the most unstable air possible with this. So I think that's one of the things that will probably help them to stay a little bit below severe limits. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this to analysis mode. If you give me just a moment here to kind of pop over to do that. Because one of the things I want to do is I want to make sure we have the right speed on some of these thunderstorms here. So again, looking at the last hour's worth of data here for a moment, I'm going to kind of pull this back, make sure we've got kind of the right location there. They are still moving at a fairly decent pace. So we're looking at that from Middleton back there, about 30 miles per hour or so. So as now we kind of advance that forward, get you kind of a longer range storm track here on this. We're going to, again, I'm going to track rather than the gusty wind that'll run ahead, we'll go ahead and run on the overall storm track there. As you can see, some locations involved here. We're looking by Haley about 10:08. We've got a lot of locations on there, so we're going to go and thin out this because we're going to want kind of a longer track. So we know some people are going to be kind of heading to bed here in a minute, and so let's make sure we kind of do the best job on that possible. So again, here's kind of the longer track there. We show for our area, let's start looking there. Holly Springs, you can see about 10:43 for you. Selmer, we're about 10:33. Faulkner, about 11 o'clock. Hickory Flat, about 11:15. Ripley, about 11:25. Again, this is assuming we still have enough of a southeast component on that there. So you can see really kind of moving more east than southeast. One of the ways I'm looking at that kind of back on the backside here, see how this positioning where it is now, I mean, maybe heading just a little bit south. So I might be pulled too far south there, but if this were to kind of hold together for a while, and it will take a while for that to be the case, it's kind of zip this ahead, make Ripley our first city here for a moment. And that'll kind of get some other locations, such as you can see, Myrtle, we show 11:39 there. Iuka, about 11:51. We're looking Boonville, close to around 12:04, around midnight again for New Albany, if it makes it that far south. Tishmingo, 12:22, and Guntown, about 12:33. That's assuming, again, it goes that far south. And there are no guarantees, I think, that we necessarily get quite as deep to the south as well on that. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that off here for just a moment. And again, what's behind this is we do have more active weather back into Arkansas. From time to time today, we've had tornado watches back out there in the Arkansas. As I kind of pull off our reflectivity data for just, actually, I think we have a warnings thing I can hit here. Give me just a moment. Where is our warnings? Well, let's see. Well, I know a way I can pull it off, so give me just a moment to do that. Kind of backward way. But so you can see back out here in the Arkansas, the green box here would be severe thunderstorm watch, I believe, still in effect. This is a tornado watch up here. Tornado watch has been lifted. Severe thunderstorm watch still for some locations back that way. But you don't see one of those watches here in Mississippi at this point, and we don't expect we'll probably have anything at the level where it requires one of those. But again, additional thunderstorms probably will continue to try to move in as we go into the overnight hours. And that is one of the things that Gabe is tracking back there in the Room to Room Weather Center, again, is as we look into the overnight hours where kind of the positioning of those storms are. The reason you see me, by the way, looking like this is the beauty of the work from home, Gabe, is if we have something deep into the overnight hours, at least I'll be able to kind of track it from here if we need to, right?
Exactly. So we're going to keep eyes on those storms heading overnight and into the start of our Wednesday. So It's going to be a busy night, but hopefully not a severe night for a lot of folks, and we'll continue to watch that behind the scenes. But
Hopefully.
right now, that severe weather threat remains over the top of us heading into our Wednesday primarily, with that level 1 threat still in place, but those storms already starting to move in. And as Matt was mentioning, that outflow boundary, that boundary out ahead of those storms, whenever we start to get that out ahead, it means that we're not overly concerned with that severe weather threat heading overnight. So I'm going to expand this out, and as you can see, that front inching closer and closer right over the Little Rock area around 3 a.m. And that's where those chances will surge into North Mississippi, looking at that extended forecast and talking as early as 6 or 7 a.m. on your Wednesday. So unfortunately for that morning commute, you can see that batch of thunderstorms already moving there towards the Greenville area and southwest part of our viewing area, right across the Mississippi River, and those chances will increase by late morning and really into the early afternoon as that frontal boundary, that entire line, starts to extend further into North Mississippi during those afternoon time frames. So yes, we have severe weather threats, multiple of them as we head overnight, but still only that level 1 threat. So we're not overly high on the amount of reports we're expecting within this severe weather threat, but the chances are definitely there to have at least strong storms that could have that severe potential paired with it. 30% for your morning commute, but by the time we get towards that lunch hour and well into that mid-afternoon, 60% chances, and then those chances start to diminish by 9 and 10 o'clock tomorrow evening. So the entire time frame, and I listed this out on Facebook, is about 11 p.m. starting tonight all the way into 9 p.m. tomorrow. That does not mean that everyone is going to be getting inclement weather during that entire time frame. It's going to be off and on, and so that's the importance of having those weather alerts is with Weather Call or Mississippi Live Weather app or anything of that matter to alert you when that weather is getting a little bit more intense around your area. So you're not sitting there monitoring it for nearly 24 hours because no one wants to be doing that. We want to be getting our stuff done while staying weather prepared, and that's the best way to do so. So coming up in 60, we'll be walking through the latest on that forecast, the time frame that we'll have, and of course where we expect the most impacts to be made. We'll of course track that in more detail, and of course your Mississippi Live Weather Game of the Week. Where are we headed to this Friday? We'll track that in detail coming up here in the next 60 on Mississippi Live Weather at 10.
If you're facing a DUI charge, every decision matters. At the law office of Andrew W. Stewart II, we provide a skilled defense to protect your record, rights, and future. Call today or visit drewstewartlaw.com. Your future is worth defending.
Right now, from the Mississippi Live Weather Center, here's meteorologist Gabe Maynor.
Thank you for keeping it with Mississippi Live Weather at 10. We're getting a live look out of Cleveland, 81 degrees right now, and this is looking north to where those storms are starting to move in towards DeSoto County. 84 degrees is what it feels like. Dew point around 72, so that energy is in the atmosphere for at least some of those strong storms to start to move in. Not just in Cleveland, but if we get a look out there towards Batesville, earlier on we were getting an impressive look at that cloud base and of course those towering clouds off there in the distance. You saw that strike of lightning a moment ago. I think we'll get another one here shortly. Yeah, exactly that. Just because this isn't an energetic storm, despite it not being at that severe parameter just yet, we are keeping eyes on that for the potential of it increasing as it crosses the state line. And not too far away, this is a look over there in Oxford, and we are seeing what looks to be all of that rainfall reaching the ground right there, all that lightning along that leading edge. I mean, lightning is going to be a big factor with these storms, so I would not be surprised at all if DeSoto County lost or had a few power outages because of a result of those lightning strikes. Doesn't necessarily take severe weather to knock out power. It can do so with just a few lightning strikes reaching the ground. So let's go ahead and get into our Mississippi Live Weather Radar, which as you can see right here, those storms inching closer and closer to DeSoto County, reaching as far south as Tate County as of this point. The big key with this forecast, though, is that outflow boundary now starting to get a little bit ahead of that line of storms, and so fortunately I think that we are not seeing these storms strengthen, but rather remain the same, if not weaken, into that extended forecast. So we are going to put this on the latest scan here real quick, and let me actually adjust this behind the scenes to put all of this Just some housekeeping things. There we go. So I'm going to put this on analysis mode real quick, and we're going to take a look at the radar site over there in the Memphis area. And as you can see, that is starting to inch closer, but overall remaining below severe limits. So let's get it on that latest scan, and let's draw out a storm track. And let's draw out a storm track. I'm going to have to go back the last hour and see how these are trending. So let me do this real quick and map that out. And we are still talking about 25 to 30 miles an hour. So this is still a fast-moving system, especially compared to what we've seen the past few days with 5 to 10 miles an hour. So if we put a storm track on that, of course, moving in that east-southeast motion, you can definitely see that we are going to be getting a lot of other areas affected here in the next few minutes. So this is around the Red Banks area. I'm actually going to redraw this because I don't think we got that speed exactly right. So let me get that one more time over there towards West Helena, around Hernando, Byhalia, Middletown, Tennessee, and then up there around Selmer. If we extend this, I'm going to only go about 30 miles an hour. And there we can see the Alphaba area, 1018, the Strayhorn area, 1019, Cockram, 1019, Masseyville, 1020, Crenshaw, 1022, Robertson area by around 1022, and the Coldwater area towards 1022. So this is a system that we're watching, not necessarily for severe factors, but at least lots of lightning, lots of rumbles of thunder, and some heavy rainfall. I mean, just over the past few hours, what we've gotten out of that is about 1 to 2 inches in a few locations. So heavy rainfall factor. That's why we do have that flash flood warning in effect until 12:30 on your Wednesday. That's around Shelby, Tennessee, but also as far south as DeSoto and Marshall County here in North Mississippi. That's going to be for folks living along Highway 72 and Highway 302. So paying attention to that in more detail. So right now, fortunate that we do not have any severe weather, but we're not completely out of the threat just yet. If we look at that day 1 threat, I do want to say that we do have that level 1 risk, that marginal risk in effect for overnight and into about 6 a.m. That's when we move into the next day's severe weather risk. So it encompasses that overnight threat. So if we look at tomorrow's, I mean, you can kind of get the picture. The severe weather threat does continue. But what I'm going to do here real quick is walk through each individual severe weather threat. And this is to show you what exactly we're expecting. We'll get into this in a moment as well. So here's a look at Tuesday's damaging wind risk. And you can see that basically encompasses the same general level 1 area that we have with that all-encompassing day 1 severe weather risk. But let's look at the hail, and the hail is towards places in West Helena, around Tunica County, and as far northwest as DeSoto County. And same thing with that tornado threat. Tornado threat is definitely something that we are paying attention to because this has been a little bit pushed towards the east, encompassing Marshall County, Tippah County, Benton County, and even as far northeast as Corinth and Iuka. So we're watching folks over there. It's still only a level 1 threat, but that's just in regards to the number of reports. You see that the greens, the yellows, the oranges are all based off of number of reports, and green basically means a limited number. So it's not exactly something we expect, but we're not ruling it out. It's what we call a non-zero tornado threat. So paying attention to that, and if you look at where that area is, that's right along the Tennessee state line. As these storms start to move in, it just takes that one interaction with the energy in our atmosphere to initiate one of those with the right turning of the winds. Again, not exactly something we have prominently in our area, but not ruling it out as it crosses into Mississippi. But let's get back into that day 2 risk. And as you can see, level 1 all across North Mississippi. But the good thing is, or should I say, it's the one threat that we're watching is that damaging wind risk, still that level 1 threat across North Mississippi. This is the prominent thing that we're looking for. Looking at that hail threat, I mean, it's basically nothing. We're not expecting that here in North Mississippi, so maybe some small hailstones, but this is regarding those severe hailstones around 1 inch in diameter or greater. And that tornado threat, same thing with our forecast tomorrow. Not expecting a tornado threat. It's just primarily going to be that wind event for both days, especially along that frontal boundary. That leading edge is what we're paying attention to as we get that extended forecast set up. So as of right now, the storms continue to trend into North Mississippi, and that's what we'll be paying attention to towards the Holly Springs area and Ripley, going to be moving in there next. So that's where our eyes are panned to. But all of North Mississippi, don't worry, going to be getting those showers and storms in that extended forecast. So here's a look at Futurecast heading into your Wednesday morning, and those showers and storms just continue to inch closer and closer as they cross the Tennessee state line, but more action, more activity out there towards Arkansas that'll continue to develop right before the river and then into our area closer to about 6, 7, and 8 o'clock in your Wednesday morning. So Wednesday morning, as we can take a look right here, that severe weather risk, this is when it turns over into that day 2 risk. So day 1 kind of expires fires along the Cleveland, Oxford, and Corinth areas further northwest, but everywhere else will be in that risk, and that's a result of those storms transitioning more east in our extended forecast. So your school day, drop off 71 degrees, 81 by lunch, and 83 towards that last spell, 40% coverage. And honestly, it just continues to climb by the afternoon. So we could be seeing a few strong storms on our commute to school. Definitely something we need to pay attention to. And best way to do so, tuning in to our morning broadcast with meteorologist Maggie McCauley. But towards the afternoon, and we'll be paying attention behind the scenes in case we need to make a quick cut in and talk through a few of those severe thunderstorms. If they get issued, is around that 3 p.m. hour, as we could be driving home in some inclement weather as well. So let's go ahead and get into that futurecast and walk through what to expect. One area in particular that I've been paying attention to behind the scenes is down here towards Greenwood and Greenville. Basically, we have this warm sector right here where there's like a small warm front that's going to allow some of that energy to kick in from the south and could produce some isolated development there around 7 and 8 o'clock. I mean, there you see it just flaring up around Greenwood and Winona, and that's definitely an area of focal point because some of these could produce some large hail as well as some gusty winds. So that's a threshold that I'm watching for that early morning commute, but that starts to merge into that main cold front, and that's where some more storms will start to develop as that energy from those prefrontal storms along with the frontal storms come together. They could strengthen rapidly and then, of course, produce some of those strong wind gusts as well. So those start to trend more into North Mississippi. Some of that isolated activity as far northeast as Boonville, Corinth, Tupelo, and Fulton. That's going to be around 1:30. But all eyes continue to remain out there in the Delta with the main batch of showers and storms. There's your leading edge of that front right there towards Greenville, Shelby, and Clarksdale. That's around 3 p.m. and that continues to inch through North Mississippi as we get into that 5 and 6 o'clock hour. Not necessarily high on those chances once we move into those overnight hours, but still some scattered showers do remain. But Matt, we're keeping eyes on this, and I was talking to you behind the scenes that there are some areas that have a little bit better on those parameters than others. And one of those being that early morning commute down along Cleveland and Greenwood, southern part of I-55 in our viewing area. Oh, went on a journey. I don't know if your mic is on. I can tell by the body language kind of what you're saying.
Now we're on. Okay. Man. Okay, hold on. So I'm going to turn off that banner, basically the way we can telestrate on that and move around for a moment here. Let's look at this for a second here. So again, this is the early morning stuff close to the front, right?
Exactly.
I'm just going to scroll this forward here for a moment. Now, are we looking at 0Z? Yeah, we're looking at 0Z her here. Okay. So you have this kind of initial wave. Notice how it kind of I might hear. I'm gonna swap it for a second, and then I'm gonna pop your mic up where we can hear your mic too. So give me just a moment to be able to do that. Okay, now we can hear Gabe at the same time. Okay, back over here. So one of the things that I find interesting about this is you have kind of this initial batch of thunderstorms here, right? And then that's kind of what the focal point for what kind of develops off of that, right? So 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, is that the point there where these storms get a little more organized? I'll be honest, I see kind of what looks like some kind of an outflow boundary extending south there. That's what's the development point on a lot of those thunderstorms. And so if you were to get something attached to that, maybe a little more rotation, I'm just not impressed by the tornado threat on this at all, thankfully. And then, of course, more thunderstorms developing into the afternoon as we can get those to kind of develop along and closer to that frontal boundary there. So I know this, I'll point this out. Notice how it doesn't really, if you look Oxford or Tupelo, we just point out Grenada there, and there's just not a whole lot of really anything that shows up in some of those spots during this time, right? Just kind of advance it through there. It just says we're kind of in that maybe nowhere zone. Well, a few more thunderstorms early afternoon, but just not a lot. It's like it's all south and all north. Gabe, I think that remains, at least in my opinion, one of the big questions on how this could play out is whether or not that actually ends up developing like that, where you kind of get that zone. I think where that comes in, we don't have those thunderstorms out there tonight, whether or not that somehow works over that area, but we also get redevelopment up north. So I think there's luckily some inconsistencies in this model, and inconsistencies usually a sign that we avoid the worst of it. But I still think, yeah, some spotty, severe weather potential, damaging wind in particular, maybe some hail, I'd say the main factors, right?
But yeah, and that severe thunderstorm warnings that were issued tonight were a large part on the leading edge of that frontal boundary. So I would say that's the main area to keep eyes on, will be what exactly is associated with the front. All of that prefrontal stuff really hasn't turned out to be much of anything. There was that one storm in Tennessee that did produce a severe thunderstorm warning, but Other than that, it was mainly the flooding rainfall threat. And so all this is going to do is give us a ton of rainfall, and that's the beneficial part of this storm. But yeah, I mean, that severe weather possibility is still very limited, despite some parts of the models looking a little bit better than others. It's just the inconsistencies that you're right about that we're watching, and that kind of helps us understand that we don't need to be overly concerned, just informed as we head into that Wednesday forecast.
Absolutely, you're right. And staying just on top of things just in case. And then I think the good news is, Gabe, once this kind of kicks through the area, it largely looks like, we're probably
Good.
done
Looks
as far
like
as
fall.
Thursday's concerned. I know. Well, we just need a little more rainfall before we go back into fall. That's the fall that we need. Before we go any further, real quick, I do want to remind folks about Weather Call. Mississippi Live Weather Call is a service that will alert you, hey, listen, things sometimes change in the middle of the night. We recommend this. We'll call you for tornadoes if that ends up being something, which again, we don't anticipate. Weird things sometimes happen, and calls you back if tornadoes confirmed. You can sign up for calls for severe storms. You can set it where it's just text messages for those or major flooding, things of that nature. But it does cost $15 a year. You can see the QR code below me here. I have it for my family. I've had it for years for my family. And so highly recommend that. It's just that peace of mind, Gabe, so that folks, so that they can know that, hey, we're in good shape. We are going to, make it through the overnight hours, okay. So that's one of the reasons we talk about Weather Call. Now, I do also think that you have in here kind of the overall threat levels on these threats. Did I miss that one earlier?
It's at the very bottom.
Okay, let's go ahead and let's go down to that one, I think, because I think one of the things, again, that shows this is kind of talking about the confidence level on this. And we don't have a particularly high confidence level of tornadoes, right? I mean, I'd say it's pretty low.
I mean, lower than low at this point. It's not an impossibility, though. And that's what I want to say to folks. It's a non-zero tornado threat, which means that we don't anticipate it, but with the right turning of the winds and the right interaction of a boundary. I mean, what was it? About a month ago in Northeast Alabama, there was, for one brief moment, I'm talking just a couple seconds, a tornado touchdown that wasn't really anticipated. It was just the right parameters. It all happened at one time and produced a brief tornado. So that's not an impossibility here. It's, again, just not expected. And same thing, hail threat, not overly high on that. I would say our best threats right here is the wind and that flash flooding potential, of course, with that heavy rainfall. Let's talk about the flash
flooding potential for a second, because with the one thing I will say is with this kind of setup near the Tennessee state line, where you do probably leave some kind of boundary there, and models being so aggressive up north in Tennessee, I mean, would that be the zone you'd put that?
For sure. I would say, because, I mean, you saw it today. All along Tennessee, they got this repeat of showers and showers and showers. And so we got these flood advisories and some flash flood warnings. Still have one, might I say, until 12:30 in DeSoto County. But that's the potential that's there. And that's why that's a little bit higher than our hail threat. That's why it's a little bit higher than our tornado threat. It's just with all of that heavy rainfall, I had some outputs around 2 or more inches. And that's enough to produce some flash flooding, especially, I mean, folks know it up around the Memphis area, but there's even some places in Tupelo that I know that can have some flash flooding based off of 1 to 2 inches of rainfall. It doesn't take very much.
Okay, so here's that flash flood threat really next 24 hours or so, and then beyond that kind of shifting eastward over the next couple of days. But yeah, Gabe, I think that's probably part of the reason why that threat is greatest to the north and west, certainly over the next 12 hours out that direction, and shifting east beyond that.
Well, I want to say, while you have our graphics pulled up right here, what are your thoughts on the tornado threat being shifted along the Tennessee state line into those overnight hours?
I think it has to do with the fact that, well, first off, let's ask this question here for a second, and I'm going to put on storm reports for a moment. Have we had any storm reports of tornadoes out there today?
Not anything confirmed. We've had multiple warnings, but yeah, nothing confirmed as of now.
So, I mean, again, this is when you say that non-zero threat. It's just the fact that you kind of have a boundary. Some storms maybe redevelop on a boundary. It's kind of in the off season, and so sometimes maybe you overinflate that threat a little bit. I'm not impressed by the tornado threat on this. I mean, even the wind and hail threats aren't particularly impressive. And if come back to tomorrow, picking up tomorrow's threat, no tornado threat they show on there at that point, but wind is the main issue on maybe the more locations. So yeah, going back to that tornado threat you were talking about, I'm not impressed by what we're looking at with it. Weird things happen from time to time, but again, maybe this is the more important thing to show, is we look at the strong tornado risk, and we have warnings, we have other things on there that I'll try to pop off for just a moment. But we look at the strong tornado risk, and there's not one. So again, that's where we need to be thinking about reinforced structure, things of that. Any tornado can be a killer, so we always want to respect it. But again, this is just kind of a reminder that as far as the tornado threat is concerned, non-zero chance. But as far as a strong tornado, Gabe, I don't think we're getting that out of this.
I agree. And one of the things, I forgot what I was going to say as soon as you did that. I do think, I'll say this because I had multiple thoughts in my head run through it while you were talking. The hail threat for tomorrow being 0. In regards to not even a level 1 threat that's out.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do think that's something that needs to be possibly upped, and we're going to go ahead and draw our make-believe green around North Mississippi because we do believe that there's at least going to be some of those hailstones. They might not be 1 inch or greater, but there you go. They might not be 1 inch or greater, but still we're going to be expecting some small hail around the area. So there you go. We're going to put this in our graphic system, Matt.
There we go. So I agree. I think this is one adjustment they'll probably make. New advisory comes out a little after midnight to 1 o'clock in the morning tonight. They will probably include some limited hail threat on that. I think. I don't know. We're talking really, really big stuff. And if I go back and kind of look at the storm reports here in a minute for today, again, I put both the warnings and storm reports back on there. Nope, clear that off.
Do I need to move? Can you see?
No, I can. It's for whatever reason, I was messing with that yesterday. It wants to do it. There were not a ton of hail reports back west, and that might be part of where they're coming from on it, where they had a level 2 hail threat. That's not really level 2 hail reports. I mean, most of these, 1.3 inches, almost an inch, and this is an environment that's more likely to produce hail than what we had here. I think that might be what's kind of fiddling into what their thinking is on this as well. So we will see.
And same thing with that. We had a hatched area in northwest Arkansas which means that strong tornadoes are possible. And that didn't verify to the point that we have not gotten any tornado reports so far. And so the fact that we had a hatched... Do what?
Fingers crossed.
Exactly. But so far, so good. And with the hatched area, we usually see more activity. And so the fact that that hasn't verified, having that level 1 threat for Corinth and Ripley and all the way towards Holly Springs, I think that's even more of a reason to take a step back on that and not believe it because the hatched area hadn't even verified. So that means that, level 1 threat probably won't verify either.
Oh, fingers crossed.
There we go. I don't even know if that's made out of wood.
No, there's some wood back there someplace in that wall. It's metal studs. Well, hold on. I've got this table's wood particulate matter, so we'll count that one as good.
Okay, perfect. Well,
well, let's go ahead and finish up the forecast. Sorry, I jumped in there, but again, that's kind of just wanted to give some folks, some context on where these severe threats, kind of come in on this. So spotty wind reports, maybe tornado threat non-zero, and again, some hail. And then that flash flooding threat, that's the only one that if I were adjusting, maybe we go a little bit higher. Okay, I'll get all your hair and let you finish up the forecast here on the 7-day.
No, I'd appreciate it. And we do have our game of the week that we'll get into in just a moment. We do have a winner on that. I went ahead and pulled it up. But looking at that 7-day forecast before we get into it, we see 60% chance on Wednesday. And of course, that's going to be primarily towards that afternoon time frame where scattered showers and thunderstorms, and a few of those on the stronger side are expected. Thursday, that scattered chance does remain as that moisture kind of wraps around that low. And then 20% chance towards your Friday morning. So Friday evening for that game of the week should be in good shape as we stay with those drier conditions. And not only drier, we get to enjoy those cooler temperatures as well. That cold front at least bring in some cooler conditions. The weekend looking perfect for some college football. 84 degrees for your Saturday afternoon, starting in the upper 50s. Low 60s Sunday, climbing into the mid 80s. And I mean, that's really where we remain, not seeing those 90s in the next 7 days. So that is a great sign for folks that are ready for that fall season, at least feeling closer to that fall season. So I'm going to take a step off screen here real quick and pull up that game of the week forecast. So bear with me one moment. Or not game of the week forecast. Game of the week, where are we headed? So let me get that up behind the scenes here real quick. Won't take but just a moment. If internet allows, I trust. We almost there? Okay. So yeah, as you can see in that forecast, we are continuing to see those dry conditions persist. And as we mentioned for that Friday night as well. So were you able to get it?
Yeah, I was able to bring it up on my end there. And with 50%, West Point and Tupelo is our winner this week. And the number of votes was significant, Gabe. I don't know if you can click that there. I can bring up the actual post on this end, but I mean, a lot of folks voting. But yes, it's also the community tailgate, I know, in Tupelo. So I know that's probably part of the reason why a lot of folks were voting for that one. Belmont Red Bay made a major move, and they were actually leading for a good chunk of the day. It wasn't until late this afternoon that really West Point and Tupelo kind of took over there. So, of course, huge matchup, number one team in the state, the most wins in state championship history. And yeah, it is on.
I think it says 4,236 votes for West Point Tupelo.
Man, 4,000, and then I think I got it behind the scenes here, 3,726 for Belmont and Red Bay. So I know that's a huge game. You know, the interesting thing about it, you know, someone was mentioning that's like, oh, the only obvious one was West Point and Tupelo, and that's a big game. But Belmont and Red Bay are across state lines and yet sit, I think, only about 7 miles apart. When you think about that, that's closer than Saltillo High School is to Tupelo High School. You know, so I mean, it's about as close to a crosstown rivalry as you get. Everyone shops at the same places, so that was a really big one there. And Houston, of course, New Hope. We hope to maybe catch up with one of those teams a little later on in the season, as well as the case with Belmont and Red Bay. But certainly excited about that for our game of the week, as I'll send it back to you there in the studio, Gabe.
Yeah, Houston and New Hope need a new hope at some point later in the season, and I think we'll be able to provide them that because it is definitely an exciting time down there. I was able to go for a playoff game last year, and it was a fun time down there in New Hope. So Belmont, Red Bay, someone also did point this out, the fact of the divisions. I mean, Tupelo's 7A, so of course there's more people, there's more students there, which means that they're able to get a few more votes, but the fact that Belmont versus Red Bay was able to compete with that definitely tells a story about the rivalry and the battle that they have. And so just, I mean, a big head-to-head competition, but we're excited to be in Tupelo, somewhere pretty local, and we get to enjoy a little bit about the Golden Wave. So we're excited to see what they got. 2 undefeated teams, 3-0 for West Point, and I believe, or is it 3-0 for Tupelo? One team's 3-0, one team's 4-0. Either way, it's an undefeated matchup, and we're excited for that.
And Green Wave. It's the wet battle of both of the
waves. Oh, it
waves.
is the battle of the wave. Oh, my word.
Uh-huh.
Well, sweet. And that makes it even better. Well, in honor of that, I guess we'll have to wave goodbye and say have a great night. And of course, if you do not already have it, make sure to download that Mississippi Live Weather app. You can see it at the bottom of your screen. Actually, I might have to pull it up. Matt, are you able to pull it up? Oh, sweet. Do we have the QR code? I don't know if it ever aired.
I can get it up here in a second, but of course you can see the live shows tomorrow, 6:37 a.m., 7:30 a.m. Of course, our meteorologist Maggie McCauley will be live then. If for whatever reason we have a significant severe weather situation, then we'll be on top of that. Of course, watching things as well. I do want to kind of indicate. Well, hold on a second here. Are we in the background behind that? Let me clear that off for just a moment here. I'm going to take you in Chroma from, it's not one. There we are. Hold on.
I saw it for a second.
And now, oh, I know what it is. Didn't finish programming that button before the show. That's the reason that button didn't work. That was the one I was working on before the show. Didn't get done. Either way, okay.
Well, I took it from you, so.
No, well, we ran out of time. And isn't it funny? We ran out of time then and haven't run out of time during our show, but that's the beauty of that. So again, here's kind of the deal. You see me in the white t-shirt. I may or may not be in this if we have to run in here at the last second, come on the air. We're going to be watching things overnight. Our coverage policy here is not all that different from what it was back at the TV station. Tornado warnings, life-threatening severe weather. When possible, we will try to augment that. Middle of the night might not be that situation. There are a lot of times we have thunderstorms in the middle of the night that we're probably not going to necessarily have coverage on. In some of those cases we will, in some of those cases we won't. But I got to tell you that we will not be on for every single severe thunderstorm warning that we have overnight. But if we look at something we think, okay, that could be on its way to becoming life-threatening, that's likely be producing significant damage damage. In those situations, we will be doing more coverage than we did before. So again, it'll be some shades of gray going into this, and we're still learning what makes the most sense, what you guys are looking for. And honestly, the last thing that we want anybody to do is 12 months from now and say, those folks over Mississippi Live Weather do a great job, but they always hype things. That's not what we want to do. So I want to make sure one of the things we've done a great job with back at the TV station to now is not hyping, giving the information, but without giving it with a lot of hype. We do get a little excited, and like I used to say, part of the reason for that is it's like Thomas the Tank Engine. We're a very useful engine when it comes to this, but we obviously don't want to see severe weather. I think anybody that watches us knows that. But we also don't want to hype the weather at the same time. So again, how we cover this is still somewhat fluid. Ultimately, the threshold is if we think it's causing significant damage someplace, we're going to be uncovering it. If we think it could cause significant damage, we'll be uncovering it. But there will be some situations where we aren't uncovering it as well. You can watch us here on the 24-hour channel. Mississippi Live Weather app will have those alerts as well. And I think, again, the reason why I always talk about Weather Call here, and I'll pop this up again for you, is because Weather Call is the thing that is your personalized tornado warning. So making sure that you are safe from severe weather is what this is important for doing. So it calls you if you're in that danger zone. You can see QR code there on the screen. This is what we always recommend. And of course, then layering up those opportunities to protect ourselves. And that's what Gabe was mentioning a moment ago there. And that is the QR codes for those folks on Facebook that haven't downloaded the app yet. You can download the app there for iOS and Android devices. It is free in all the various app stores. And by the way, if you have the app and you might have just popped it up in the last day or so, you probably want to update to the latest version, going to the App Store, open it up, making sure your location's in there. All good ways to kind of stay ahead of things. But certainly, we'll be watching things very closely overnight. If virtual room-to-room weather center, or Gabe back there in the legitimate room-to-room weather center.
Wait, I think it broke up, Matt. What did you say between that?
Oh, I was saying between Gabe and myself, we'll be watching things overnight, and our meteorologist Maggie McCauley as well. So keep it here for the latest. You can see that 7-day forecast. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with the app, also submit your reports. And that's an essential thing for kind of gauging when those severe thunderstorm warnings need to be issued. If it knocks down a couple trees, submit that report. Let us know. We'll forward that to the National Weather Service. If there's large hail, take a picture of it once it's passed next to a coin or something like that, or something that's commonly known, and we'll forward that to the National Weather Service as well, so they can better issue those warnings as the day goes on. So we'll keep eyes on that behind the scenes like you were mentioning, but that's a big part that you guys can provide as our weather watchers out in the field, is just letting us know what's actually happening on the ground compared to what we're seeing up in the sky.
Okay, and we'll do, I think, a final storm track here, discuss kind of the overall real quick, and then we'll probably shut this down. 75 miles. I'm going to change this over to a slightly larger city there. And so to give some folks some ideas, if that, kind of holds together, let's go a little beyond 75. Let's go 85. Okay. 95. Okay, I know what's happened. I ran out of cities. So you can see Holly Springs about 10:59 there, which puts us, within about 15 minutes or so. Faulkner about 11 o'clock. What do we got there? Rienzi by about 11:47. Ripley about 11:46. Iuka 12:10. And then I'm going to change our first city there to where it is a little farther down the road. Give me a moment. There's Iuka. And we'll first city select. So that way we can kind of get the rest of the locations kind of showing up there. So you can see Oxford about 12:21, Ecru 12:53, Saltillo at about 12:45, Thaxton 1 o'clock. And again, this making it through the Tupelo area. Am I missing Tupelo on that list there? Pontotoc 128.
I'm not seeing it either. It should be around 12:40 though, somewhere in that time frame.
Yeah, I would say 12. Oh, I know what it is. See how right there, how our track like pulls it back? I'll bet that's the part when you track it forward that has it coming in, so it's skewed it a little later. Let's try this again. Let's change our first city. Again, there's things we're learning about how this incredible system works, because it does a great job. Give me a moment to kind of pull it down. Is it looping? Okay, hold on. Now that's Verona. It has about 2 o'clock. Tupelo, there we are, about 1:45. Getting my system here behind the scenes to decide it wants to do that. There we are. Make that one first. First city, select. Riveting TV stuff here going on. 1:45. Nailed it.
See, and that lines up with models more. So I think that more of that 1, 2, 3 o'clock time frame where it gets into more of the northeast part of the area is a little bit better on that timing as this just gradually trends a little bit more south. But some of those isolated, we can kind of see it there behind me. I'm kind of blocking it. But right there where it's starting to dip a little bit further south, that of course moving into about Lee County, not an impossibility, and southern Tishomingo County as well. So that's one of the areas to pay attention to. But this entire line is gradually dipping a little bit more south into those overnight hours.
Yeah, let's look one more loop on this again here. I love how there's always one more. Yeah, you can see how far ahead that, and you might do a better job of pointing out that outflow than I do, kind of getting ahead there. A sign that this has gone a bit of a weakening phase and continuing. In fact, I almost looked like I had a gravity wave there for a moment between Middleton and Corinth associated with that. So yeah, this is largely dying out, or at the very least is what we call elevated, where we're not getting surface-based parceled. And if you're not getting surface-based air pockets, you're not going to get tornadoes. So while there'll be heavy rainfall out of this and still maybe some gusty wind, I'll bet if we go and look at the wind on this, it's under impressive. Let's go to, I think that'd be toolbar 1. And let's do a base velocity there. And this is looking out of that Memphis airport radar that we were looking last night. Does a great job kind of seeing, again, well, I can't stand. You can, here, hold on. I'll flip
that leading edge right there?
Yeah, there's two things there. Give me a moment. So it's, you have the rain cool, that right there, that kind of push of wind. But if you look, there's a kind of an area out here near Holly Springs. That's kind of like that initial sort of gust front that's gotten away. That's another term for an outflow boundary that we used for years was gust front. Look at the other Memphis radar. Yeah, it's still a little farther away, so it doesn't do a great job kind of grabbing that. But all that pointing to non-severe more than severe weather, thankfully, and hopefully that's a trend that continues. But the problem is you start looking at the rainfall on this, and maybe that's, again, the one threat that maybe we could have upped a little bit more. I'm going to look at 3-hour rainfall in this zone. Yeah. And now instead, let's look at 12-hour rainfall. And most of it, of course, occurred in the last 3. And so we still show some spots here where we already have up near Moscow, Tennessee, 2.5 inches, 3 inches, a couple spots up there, more. So the thing is that this is really kind of setting up. If you go back to the regular rainfall mode, this is setting up as something where these storms are kind of training over the same spots, where if I make this, let's say a 3-hour loop's too long, but that's fine. A multi-hour loop here. See how there's just some of these spots where it just has not really moved, and then you're lining up more rainfall out toward Forest City and more rainfall beyond that farther out there toward Carlisle. So that scenario here, that's when you start getting more of a flash flooding threat or an aerial flooding threat in either case. So turn around, don't drown, one of those phrases that I probably don't say enough that certainly applies in this scenario here, Gabe, as we are anticipating that obviously things will be very wet overnight for some locations. And considering we have drought conditions, this is unfortunately one of those climate change problems is that, you go drought, and then when you get rainfall, it happens in bigger bursts more quickly. In the record books, it's like, oh, we caught up. But the reality isn't always as sure-footed as that. So anyway, certainly heavy rainfall overnight with this, I'd say the main impact for some spots.
Yeah, you can't keep pouring the water can on the pot thinking it's going to make the plant grow more. At some point, it reaches its threshold and the water just pours over. And that's exactly what would happen if we kept getting 4 or 5 inches of rainfall overnight. It's all got to go somewhere, and it's more than likely not. It's just going to build up.
And to that point, I would not at all be shocked if someone up Benton County, Northern Tippett County, maybe even Corinth floods real easily. If some of those spots end up having some flash flooding issues overnight, I think that seems very reasonable in this setup that somebody picks up 3.5, 4 inches of rainfall before Maggie comes on tomorrow morning. If everything kind of goes the wrong way, I'm hoping that's not the case on this. But just kind of looking at this initial radar presentations, we have it right now. I'm just kind of looking at what all we have kind of coming in behind this. A lot of rain still wrapped up behind that there out toward Wynne, Arkansas. So I don't know that I'm hoping we don't get all the way to 4 there, northern Benton or Tippah counties. But somebody up around Memphis already probably has 4 inches of rainfall and probably has another 2.5, but another 2 inches on the way. So somebody in this, now the zone that I can't point out. Hold on. Somebody in this zone, really up here farther north, probably gets 5.5, 6 inches of rain, legit rain, not just rainfall, estimated rain, overnight, including what's already occurred. Unfortunately,
thermostats are taking a while to respond.
Oh, my thermostats are taking a while to respond. That's a new Siri thing, Gabe. Anyway,
at least rain will keep it cool. You're not going to get overwhelming power bill.
Yeah. Maybe that's my sign, right? Okay. With that in mind, again, live broadcasts tomorrow morning at 6:30, 7:30 a.m. There will be some rain on the radar. Meteorologist Maggie McCauley will be watching that. From here in the Room to Room Weather Center. And of course, we'll be back on. We're tracking that other severe weather threat 5, 6, 10 p.m. tonight. But for meteorologist Gabe Maynor, I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. Thanks for supporting us, watching us here on Mississippi Live Weather. Tell your friends, 'tis the season. Things will start getting more active ahead. And again, thank you all for your support.
At First Choice Bank, we know you can't always make it before the bank closes. With our integrated teller, you can talk to a live person as late as 7 p.m. on weekdays and noon on Saturdays. It's not just an ATM, it's an ITM. First Choice Bank, your choice for banking.
Being a parent, especially for the first time, with that comes a lot of self-doubt. As a dad, I just try to lead by example. When you're trying to be the best person that you can be, your kids see that and then they emulate that.